Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
We're gonna get a little bit crazy, wild and maybe even vulgar if you please. It's after dark and we're gonna light it up. Got some fun in store for you, no tease. It's time for Midnight Edge. Dark, a little naughty, will hopefully make you chuckle, but we ain't trying to hurt nobody, so get ready quick on the double, cause it's time for Midnight Edge after dark.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for your favorite show, Midnight Edge, After Dark Live. Tonight, Peltz gives up the proxy war, and we have an update on Richard Dreyfuss. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, birds and squirrels, all around the world. Can I rhyme any more than that? I don't know. Welcome, everybody, to the program. I am Tom Connors. We have a Clobbering Times with us. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy. Good to see you. And blokes on the panel and great friends of the chat. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. We also have CC Karaoke.
Glad to be here as always.
Indeed, and I'm glad to hear that you should be back in form again this Friday, I believe. Tomorrow?
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm mostly healed up.
We're gonna sing.
Yeah, karaoke.
You can talk. I can talk. I can sing. Sorry, I'm wearing my Stop the Planet of the Apes. I want to get off shirt today. Starring Troy McClure. Speaking of Troy McClure and sexy beasts, we got the one, the only. All those are 32 flavors of him. They're all here. Nick Weiser.
32. Hello, everyone.
Oh, look at that beardo.
It's gonna go away in a few days. I'm going back to the Lemmy. The reason why it's gone, it's got beard came by because I had clippers for trimming and they got wrecked in a small flood. Not like a bad flood, but it was like really small. But when that's the worst of your casualties, it's a good day. So this is gonna go away and the Lemmy's coming back. But hello, chat, hello, panel. This Peltz thing is very interesting, and I'm ready to talk about it. So let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of news going on politically right now, but there's also something going on financially we're going to discuss, and we also have an update on Richard Dreyfuss, and we also have another Canadian joining us in the name of Script Doctor.
Good day, everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
You forgot to. I was saying. I wasn't saying hey. I was saying he forgot to add the A.
Hey, yeah. That's right.
Like,
How's it going?
hey, everybody, eh? Yeah.
Hey,
See, there you go. That's better, eh?
Yep.
Speaking of hosers, eh? No, just kidding. We got Price of Reason here, who I think may or could not be possibly not black.
Every day you find out some new information about me, Tom.
He's definitely orange.
Yeah, I don't know if I should say this story or not, but fuck it. Mikey and Price were talking in the DM group, and Price is like, "Why don't you ever invite me over?" And I said, "Because you're black."
Wow.
Evil.
He never wants to hang out. He's like, he invites people, he hangs out with them. I never get an invitation.
Well, many of us have not, so don't feel left out.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Everybody will get their chance. We're going to do a meetup at some point, I'm sure. But yes, now that the panel's here, for the most part anyway, we'll see if anybody else joins us. I did send the link out to a few plausible guests, one including, if he's listening, I doubt he's listening. But I got to bring this up. Twitter, or X as it's called, has nuked Paul Chatto.
What are you talking about? He's still alive. I was talking with him this morning.
Shh, you're ruining the suspense. No, his account has been nuked. I emailed him the link, said if he wants to come on and tell us about it. We kind of have an idea why. Some punk little bastard who's going off about political stuff, but yeah, so hopefully Elon and the gang get on that soon and take care of this injustice, because Lord knows Paul's a dick, but he's our dick.
Right. I've never seen him post anything that I would think would nuke an account. I mean, yeah, he pushes the envelope with some humor and stuff, but not in a way that I think is nukeable.
I mean, and he's said a few things here and there, but I think he has a good point of view on a lot of what's going on out there. And that's and that's a big problem, I think, in general we're having right now, is so many people are just kind of ignoring, and this is going to get us on the Richard Dreyfuss kind of subject probably too soon, but to get not to get ahead of it, like I think there's a lot of people who are just ignoring a lot of the old folks that may have something to say about something, right? Who maybe lived through a lot of these things in the past and are seeing patterns that they've seen before. And the funny thing is, it's not coming from the side that you would think it would be, that are supposedly against all the Yahtzees and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and today I think is a grand example of that. But again, I'm not trying to get too political here. We'll get into the Richard Dreyfuss business, and I think you guys will see more about what I mean there, because we have an update, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Breaking news. In fact, we're working on some other things in the background possibly, so stay tuned for that. But Mexican Iron Man is in the house. He's not on the panel. He's very upset today, and I understand why, between the Peltz news and Paul being nuked from X. Everything else going on right now, I can understand. He says, everyone of you on the panel is invited to come to my house. Can't guarantee Bambino won't snuggle. He is quite snuggly, I heard.
Yeah.
And needy.
I think he lives in California, or am I wrong?
No, he lives in South Carolina.
South Carolina, yeah.
All right, also good. Y'all just
close if you say California, Carolina, just a couple difference in letters.
Even better. I don't think.
Just pretend you can't read or something and be like, I thought it was California. I was close.
Stop.
You mean there's not a South Carolina?
I think you might offend all of South Carolina by comparing.
Yeah, they'd be probably like, "Fuck you, buddy." Speaking of fuck you, buddy, that gets us right into our first story, because Nelson Peltz is like, "Fuck you, buddy." So what is going on here? I know a lot of people are like, "What the fuck?" Because this seems to be coming out of nowhere. Did Nelson Peltz just give up? Did he say, "Screw you guys, I'm going home"? He kind of did, but he did this back in April. Okay, so we're just learning this now. So to kind of break this down as quick as possible, we just dropped a video over on Midnight's Edge. Check that out after the show if you haven't already. That's Andre's breakdown of this whole thing. So I'll kind of truncate the story here just a little bit. But basically what we're learning now is back in April, Nelson Peltz unloaded all of the shares for Tryon Group. And that's probably why it was right after the boost, I'm assuming, of the call, the proxy war vote, all that stuff. Turned around, sold them all because they looked at it like, yeah, this is probably the highest. And I think I looked it up. It was the highest. Mikey, if you're still in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, that the stock had been since I think a year before that in 2022.
Since Iger came back after left. Yeah.
Basically. But I mean, before that, the next highest point would have been, I think, like 118 back in the month of 2022. So they probably looked at this as a new high and they're like, yep, well, this is it. And that's probably my guess, is they hit whatever the new high was after Iger came back. And since they knew Iger was not going to play ball with them, he unloaded all their shares. And this was right after. So this wasn't like he waited and then just decided and was waffling or anything like that. At that point, when they did not vote him in, he's like, fuck you guys, we're done.
Yeah.
So what this does now is it puts Bob and Disney in a bit of a precarious place. Now you're gonna see some of the news kind of run this as a win for Bob and a loss for Peltz, and some are kind of neutral, and some are even pointing out that Peltz did make all his investors quite a bit of money in this deal, because when he bought in, it was about 70 some, I guess, dollars a share,
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So he did walk away with around $20 or no, sorry, $40 a share roughly profit.
$1 billion.
No, almost 50, because I think he sold it at what, 117?
Right, yeah, I was trying to do the math in my head. Yeah,
so closer to $50, which is
not bad.
Over.
I think it was $1 billion
share.
overall is what they had said.
Yeah, they pulled out a whole $1 billion, which I mean, Disney's going to miss that money.
I mean, sure, they'll get other investors and stuff like that, but this is a big group. This is a big deal. This is not some little thing. And this is also a signal that will be sent to other investor groups and other people throughout the industry. So, yeah, I want to throw this out to you guys. How do you guys see this?
Trian's a very influential investment group. If they have abandoned ship on Disney, it's not going to take long for the other investments groups to reevaluate and determine if they're going to stick with the company or not.
I mean, I see this as a big muscle flex by Peltz. I mean, just again, I'm not a financial analyst. You go to VR for that, but he walked away with what, $1 billion in profit. So whatever he does next, his portfolio now lists that he went into Disney and he came out a winner. Right? He made money on that investment.
I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge win, and just on that level, whether or not he continues with the fight, he wins. He made a ton of money. And that is now, like, from an investment standpoint, that's his reputation. He won on Disney.
Not only that, he also did it in a way that he's like, okay, there's a problem with the company. I want to step in here and help fix it. Then they invest a ton of money. They're scared. They start talking to all the people and forming a whole alliance. They're running scared for months and invest a ton of money in this campaign. At the end, he just sees that he made a profit. He's like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'll see you guys later. Then do whatever you want. And I think that...
No, sorry, I just wanted to say this is the first proxy fight he's ever technically lost. Go ahead, Price.
Right, but I'm saying, like, he lost the proxy fight and walked away with $1 billion. I think that it shows, like, he can now spin it as, well, I had an opportunity to make money for my investors. At the same time, it's obvious this whole thing with Disney is rigged and they don't want to be helped. So I don't want to invest my time in it. He can walk away looking good in that sense. I don't think he looks like a bum or a loser or anything. I mean, I think that he made money. He can save face, and at the same time, it's almost like a power move. I don't think that this makes him look less in my eyes. I think it makes Disney look less in my eyes.
Well,
yeah, Peltz just basically got on the lifeboat and said, "So long, suckers. I'm gonna row to shore while you're sinking out here in the middle of nowhere."
The other thing that happened, right, is the investors voted for Iger. Like they put their own, like, they voted for Iger. They said, we believe in Iger. And now he does, like, Iger is on the spot, right? He has to perform. He has to make good on the fact that they voted for him. And when he doesn't, then he, that puts...
Well, that's the thing. Peltz could swing in later on.
Yeah.
If, let's say in the next year or so, Bob just continues down this road. And next thing you know, again, we're not financial analysts or anything like that, so do take that into consideration here on the channel. Like, who's to say that they don't turn around and buy in when it goes back down below 70 again?
I think that's a dumb idea.
Start this whole thing all over again. It could happen, though.
It could happen, but it'd be absolutely moronic because Disney
is
overvalued. It should not be. It should barely be $40 a share as a company overall. Doesn't matter the IPs it owns, doesn't matter whatever it is. It's too big right now, and nothing will change at its current size. The only way you're going to get change is when that stock goes back to what it should have been and should have always been around $40 per share. And until that happens, you're still going to get the same thing that's going to happen at Disney right now. And I'm not giving anyone out there who are investors of financial advice. I'm just telling you that there is a certain type of social, economical status that studios have to have. And the $50 mark is kind of the safe space. And when you exceed that, you get arrogant. And we are seeing what happens over at Disney. Every company has a price, a value price. to the point where they think they can do no wrong because they're that powerful. And what ends up happening is a ripple effect that negatively impacts all other corporations associated with it. Disney has done more damage to the IPs and connections and investments that it's made since it started breaking the $80 to $90 threshold. Or sorry, the $40 and $50 threshold, going into 80, 90, and then eventually up to 220 way back when. And look at all the mistakes they did because they thought they were invulnerable. That's just the case. I think Treyan and Peltz is incredibly brilliant to actually just say, nope, screw it. We're not getting back in bed with Disney. At least the only way I could see them actually reinvesting is if there's no more Bob Iger there and there's no more people of the board still at that company. It's a brand new, under new management type of situation where it's led by a bunch of people who are like, let's restore the magic.
Right.
And that's the only way you're going to see a company regain its value because, again, we've had an institutionalized leader in Bob Iger over at Disney for, by the end of it all, he's going to have been there for more than 2 decades. And yeah, over those 2 decades, it's going to have the peak of that that Disney has been the highest it's ever been, but it's going to that it comes with such a huge expense in reputation and reliability.
Yeah. Now, Clobby, you've been pretty quiet. Anything you got to say on any of this?
I know nothing. I've been following it. Didn't know what happened today. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, Bob, as the business insider here, could be possibly celebrating after today's news, although Bob probably knew way back when. But no, I think CC, you brought up the big point here. I mean, regardless if Script's right and you know, Nelson just moves on, or at some point they do kind of come back into the fold and try again, because some of the people in our sphere do think that could be a possibility, not right away, but down the road at some point, especially when Bob hits rock bottom, because that's just it. This could go bad for Bob, and I think you're right, CC, that, or was it Price that said it? One of y'all said, I think it was CC that said, it's all on Bob now to show us, you know, it's on his shoulders.
The investors had a choice, and I think that's a big deal. At least I feel like that's a big deal. Like, I'm not a professional in the field, right, of financial analytics and how that works, but they had a choice to vote for him. They could have voted differently, but they voted for Iger. And now if Iger fails to come through, there's a bit more of a pressure there than there would have been, you know, without that vote. I feel when he fails, they're like, well, we put our trust in you. We voted for you. We told you that we believed in you, and you didn't do it.
Because that's the thing. Not everybody,
yeah.
Because he didn't have as much support as we thought he did going into this last vote. Like I was very surprised, and I know other people were surprised at how much support Peltz actually had going into it. And then we realized, oh, so this whole time, this is why this has been going this way. Bob's been trying to run basically a popularity campaign to try and win this thing because he knew he was in trouble this time out. So I think you're right, and it's on him. But I don't know if it's going to do any good. And this might be something, Clobby, you can have something to say on, because we already know that Deadpool and Wolverine's in a, you know, just a desert and a sea of piss, as I keep saying, or sorry, an island, not a desert. I knew what I meant. And basically, because we know after that it's just business as usual, and here's my time to shine again, giving us some more rumors. This rumor is again more of the same. Get excited, Wanda fans, he says. I hear Marvel is looking for a director for a Scarlet Witch movie, and I said, we already got one. It was called Doctor Strange 2.
Sam Raimi returns for Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. Right?
Well, I mean, it'd be very ironic if they did a Scarlet Witch movie, but it had more Doctor Strange in it.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
We all know that ain't happening.
No. So, all right, who's the wise guy? Who put that idea into someone's head and said that's what we all wanted?
It's not that.
Nobody did.
No, they were planning this.
Well, I was being facetious, dude. That didn't really serious. What's a serious question?
Well, I mean, I would say this: 7 years ago, people would have wanted a Scarlet Witch movie.
Yeah, before they ruined the character. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the thing. WandaVision ruined her.
Before
they put a it doesn't matter at this point because Disney doesn't think they ruined the character, and that's the problem.
No, of course not.
Well,
they think they think they done her character better.
I promise you, I meant it facetiously. I know we already know how stupid they are.
Yes.
For them to think we want that.
But that's the one thing you have to remember. Whenever you hear, we have raise the question, who asked for this? It's like, it doesn't matter who asked for it. Studios don't think they are in the wrong. That's why you're getting it.
I hear you, but I only ever asked that facetiously. I promise.
Well, in
no,
this case, I wonder if they didn't realize after of the fact that they were like, "Oh shit, we made her the villain." Because even though they have that quote unquote redemption moment at the end there, I still don't know if they really realized.
Where?
Oh, yeah, Doctor Strange. When
Was
she
there
killed
redemption in
herself,
there?
basically.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, right. You remember the end of that movie? You were awake at the end of that movie?
Sadly, yes. I was waiting for
Oh,
Spider-Man to show up.
I forgot. Maybe I was
Here we go.
awake.
We got to fix your fucking problem, kid. Like,
I've already forgotten the end of that movie.
oh, I wish I could forget it. It was a horrible. The problem with that is it was a pretty looking horrible movie. Of the
Yeah,
last
it was.
movie we got, because I saw it in 3D and I saw it in IMAX, so I was like, it looked gorgeous. I was like, there's a lot of really cool stuff, especially with Doctor
A lot
Strange
of cool
stuff.
Raimi stuff in there. Yeah, visually.
Exactly. Like I was like, to look at it, it's like a fucking living
Oh,
painting.
yeah. I
The
agree.
movie is garbage, though. That's the
Fun to
fucking
watch.
problem.
Fun to watch though, in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
some of the CGI was quite dodgy. I'm not going to sit here and give it all up.
So many horrible bits in it, like the whole killing the heroes in the alternate universe crap. Well, all of it.
Well, I mean, the best they got out of Raimi is they got one of the better looking Marvel movies. Unfortunately, it's one of the worst Marvel movies. That's the problem.
Yeah.
He had to reshoot most of it.
He did. That's true.
Yeah. That bums me out that movie turned out to be such a travesty, because Doctor Strange, outside of like Spidey, Daredevil, and the Torch, Strange is definitely a character whom I hold closely dear to my heart, and they absolutely destroyed Ditko's creation, and that pisses me off. How
unfortunately,
they did his character
was like
dirty.
perfectly cast too, in my opinion. Like,
No, he was very well
I
casted
agree.
for the part. I really like. I especially like. Thought after Infinity War, I'm like, if this seems like a character they're going to commit to, this would have been it. But then, Phase 4 started. I'm like, now I don't want a Strange sequel. I really don't, after seeing what happened. And yeah, then the Multiverse of Madness happened. It really bummed me out, because as you guys mentioned, there were some good parts, like the Raimi-isms too there.
Sure.
And Raimi actually, if you think about it, if you're someone who knows either Golden Age stuff or knows Sam Raimi or knows Doctor Strange, you'll know he was a hand-in-glove fit for the character in a perfect world, because he loves that era of comics. He loves that era of characters. He understands them. He knows all about how important it is to get the Ditko stuff right. And we'll never know what could have been under Raimi's true
unfortunately, Raimi turned into a for-hire director.
No, he really did. And he also probably didn't care much about
Right.
this, because I've been hearing stories that Raimi is no longer really passionate about film. But one thing that you can do when you watch Multiverse of Madness is take a look at Benedict Wong's hair, and it changes. And that's when you can tell the reshoots happen from short to long. And by length, I mean it's like 2 inches. But it's actually kind of funny, because they didn't even bother to like trim his hair.
I didn't pay attention, but I'm not going to watch it again
Or maybe
anyway.
he got a haircut afterwards, and they didn't put him in a wig to match.
Well,
it up.
and Raimi falls into that category that I always say, that there's, when a director hits a point where they did a very personal film and it went off the rails for them in some way, and then from there on out, they just kind of phone it in. And after the shit that he put up with Spider-Man 3, and
Drag Me to Hell was actually really classic Raimi and good. I don't know.
Drag Me to Hell is probably one of the only things he's come up with in the last few years that was probably decent, but I haven't seen it. I've heard people enjoyed it, but all his Evil Dead shit is a pale comparison. His show was okay, but that got canceled on him. Like, I know, like, things like A Simple Plan didn't work out for him, and that was probably one of his better films that never gets brought up ever. In fact, I don't think it's even gotten a Blu-ray yet, let alone a DVD. Like, this movie stars fucking, like Billy Bob Thornton and shit, and it's directed by Sam Raimi. One of the greatest fucking movies of the early, what was it, 99 or 2000 it came out? I can't remember now, 98? Yeah, like 98 or 99 when it came out, and I think it even got Oscar nods at that time, but like people just totally disregarded it, forgot it, didn't do well at the box office. It was one of those movies I kept telling people, you got to see this fucking movie. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's called A Simple Plan. It's great. It's about these brothers who find a plane that's crashed in the woods full of money and all the shit that ensues after that. It's a pretty good movie. Helen Hunt's in it, and Bill Paxton, and
oh no, Helen Hunt's in it?
Yeah.
Before she hit the wall.
Yeah, it was before she hit the wall. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That ain't nice at all.
And I said Bill Paxton, right? I said that. Yeah.
Bill Paxton. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Damn good. I haven't seen it in years, but it's so good. I saw it in the theater like 4 or 5 times. My buddy worked at the theater when that came out. So that was one him and I saw quite a few times. Jason Webster sends in 2 Australians, says Disney is the Titanic and Peltz is the iceberg. Kind of, although he's the iceberg pulling away at this point now.
No, Iger's the iceberg. Peltz is the people on the Survivor, is the people on the boat just getting out.
Yeah, that's probably a better analogy. You're right.
Yeah.
Tim Hayes has been here for 31 months. Thank you, Tim. I believe we're doing a member stream this weekend. Jason Webster has been sends in a $2 Australian super chat and says 2024 replaces 2023 as Disney's Annus Horribilis. That's some Latin for you. Yeah, I mean, at this point, between basically they got Deadpool, that's about it. They better hope for some other surprise hit somewhere, because even Apes didn't do him any favors.
No. They got Alien Romulus, which I've been hearing.
That's about the only thing they got. Yeah,
I've been hearing positive buzz about, but at the same time, I'm always hesitant of a new Alien film. Ever since
those
Alien
are hit and miss
3.
at the box office, from my memory too.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how this year goes for him. I don't think Inside Out 2 is going to do jack shit. To be honest with you, I think the only reason Garfield and If has even hanging in there isn't so much that people want to see Garfield, it is that. Well, I just mean that I think people have totally lost faith in Disney, so they're willing to go to almost any other kids movie besides a Disney film.
Good. Right, but also at $60 million, I think that was the budget of the Garfield one. That's a reasonable.
Oh yeah,
budget.
they're in the black. No, I mean, but the movie's doing a lot better than even I anticipated it would do.
Oh, okay.
I thought like popularity wise, Garfield was kind of over the hill, right? Because I thought if you're like, unless you're like our age, do you really?
Yeah,
know
I like him.
Anymore? You know,
yeah,
like,
I mean, there's no new Garfield cartoon shows that I'm aware of in production.
There was for a while.
No, I'm talking like within the last 3 years. You know,
I'm trying to remember though. Yeah, when it went off the air, because my kid watched it. I remember that.
I mean,
my kid was probably like the last time. Yeah, I mean, my kid was like the last generation that I thought personally thought or knew anything about Garfield. But internationally, I knew he'd do all right. But I was surprised stateside. I wonder if it's my point was I wonder if it was more so just because of lack of other children's entertainment in comparison to people wanting to see Garfield. It could have been a little bit of the Chris Pratt.
I'm sure that helped to some point. I don't think it did anything major, but I'm sure it was a small part of it, to be very fair. And I said it with no ill will towards Chris Pratt. I think he probably, if I had to take a very close to the middle guess, he probably moves the needle maybe a little bit, not majorly. So I've 1 to 10, maybe 30-40%. I'm not saying that as a quality or lack thereof as well. It's just he's just not a name that people are, going to see because he's that name, like the same way Keanu Reeves is nowadays. Even though Keanu Reeves' Matrix
right,
absolutely bomb, but that's because the sins of the father made the Matrix suffer. That's not a
well, and the fact that Garfield took over on Monday for the top spot, that kind of told me that, yeah, the families want to go out and see something because that was Memorial Day. This week, a lot of schools are out. Furiosa's fallen off a cliff. And actually, that kind of gets us to one of our stories, a quick one anyway. Warner Brothers is in doubt about a Mad Max future after Furiosa. No surprise there.
It's a badly marketed movie. They should never have put Mad Max in the title of a Furiosa film because then people are like, well, where's Max?
Yeah, right? And I can't seem to find...
But they probably put it in there because they had no choice. I mean, first of all, it's a prequel.
IGN said we're in a time where Mad Max doesn't need to be in Mad Max movies, and their word's gospel.
They've always been a bunch of jerk-offs at IGN, so that would make sense they would write that.
I'm trying to find the source of this.
Sorry, Tom. I hope it's okay that I said that they're jerk-offs.
No, you're fine.
IGN? Oh God, don't listen to that.
Is that who put it out there? No, I'm talking about the new one, the new story that basically it's in doubt. I thought that was a.
I've heard some rumors that there's a doubt, but it's kind of a mixed feeling because the reception for those that have seen Furiosa has been mostly positive.
Yep.
And that's actually something to be taken into account. The problem being is that you have a film that represents on its surface a lot of the films that have sucked for the last 8 years. And this is probably one of the rare ones where it doesn't. Because I'm being told, and I'm going to try and see if I can get a seat.
Okay, it was Den of Geek, I think, that first put it out here. Sorry.
Well, Den of Geeks also. Yeah.
Well, this is actually a day or two after, like, they were teasing like some recut of Furiosa and some other shit too. I think Warner Brothers is just sick of George Miller's shit at this point. And I would be too if I was them.
If they would have just called it Furiosa, there would have been even less of a chance that people would have even remembered who that is, because they're going for a character from a movie that was 9 years ago that didn't even make money. Nobody remembers it, and it was like a pretty mediocre movie to begin with. And now they're doing this thing. So all they could do was write a Mad Max saga, but then it's like you said, then you're like, okay, so it's sort of a bait and switch
story.
So maybe they just shouldn't have made the movie, period.
Made the movie.
I saw the story earlier, now I can't find it.
Make that point clear. Not everything needs to be a continuation. Like Fury Road, granted, to take out my opinions on Fury Road, I feel like that should be a good determining factor of, is there still a market for it? And the movie lost money. And that was
Fury
in a
Road lost
better
money?
time.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
Fury
Fury
Road
Road
did.
made 370 worldwide.
No,
in
it did
2015.
reportedly lose 30 to 40 million.
At the box office or overall?
Yep,
Because
overall, I guess, whatever it was, because when I looked it up the other day, yeah, because between the budget, which went over budget, because that's the thing, they're only reporting the original budget. It went over budget, and then that's why Miller sued him, because he didn't get his bonus. And they're like, you don't deserve it because you went over budget. And then of course the movie didn't make any money, which added injury to insult, and that's what kept this movie so long from being made. Because this was supposed to be out like 2-3 years after Fury Road.
it was supposed to be right up against it, but yeah, because we only did like what 60
And
million.
then Wasteland was supposed to be out by now, yeah. And basically that's what I'm trying to find. Wasteland is now the movie that's in question. And there's all kinds of different stories about this out there, but trying to find the one that said that basically Warner Brothers had kind of shot down any ideas of any more future
I
films.
think they should never make another Mad Max saga movie again.
Not unless it's got Mel Gibson in it.
Right. I mean, if you have him, and it's a decent script. I don't even know these days, though. How many times do they revisit something and it's actually good? If you can somehow make something with him that's good, do it. But if it's just for the sake of saying that you have another movie with him and then it's another crappy movie, don't even do that.
It's okay
Agreed.
for things to end.
Right.
I know that seems like that's a thought that scares a lot of people.
No,
Hollywood,
I agree
but
with
it's
you.
okay if things do have an ending. And I say as someone who has a slew of ongoing stories I love, I don't think everything needs to be applied one way strictly to every single story in the world. Let's let this be.
Okay, it was a Hollywood Reporter story, but for some reason I can't find the original. And all I can find is the Yahoo Entertainment repost of it. Yeah, so that was the origin, because I knew I saw this story. I'm like, where the fuck is it? Sorry, I didn't have it prepared for the show, because I was actually saving that for the end, but since we segued there anyway. Yeah, so this is it from yesterday. Yeah, so here you go. Furiosa box office puts brakes on George Miller Mad Max. According to this, Miller and in recent week, where's the actual part where they say?
Do Control F and type in the word you're looking for.
Even Beyond the Thunderdome wasn't the best thing I'd ever seen.
No, that's only because it's stuck there.
Oh, and the score is going down from the Rotten Tomatoes source. See the This is what I thought. I was implying that the Rotten Tomatoes score was being padded out by fucking Furiosa fans, because the actual cinema score is only a B+. That's not great.
It's a very long movie.
Yeah, well, that's a big issue too. I mean, even Fury Road was too long.
So yeah, so basically where they're getting this from is that Miller, although he was out boasting about, the Wasteland and all this other stuff coming up, he also acknowledged that a lot of it hinges on Furiosa, and I think we got our answers. Where Hollywood Reporter is going here. So this is more of an analyst piece. But again, I think the point, I think it's pretty obvious.
that
They're not going to do any more of this, and
I doubt it. Yeah.
doubt they're going to do one with Mel Gibson. And even the Thunderdome one was just, barely. It's still him and his, youth, and it's okay to watch. But between you and me, once those kids show up in that movie, that also becomes kind of Hollywoodish or something. I think that Road Warrior was the last great Mad Max movie, and sometimes it's best, like Nick said, just leave things in the past. It's done.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is sometimes you want to, and sometimes you have a story that you think works best for it, and you want to give it a shot. That's what George Miller did. Apparently, he really likes the world that he built around Furiosa, and he wants to revisit it. I would say this: the world itself is actually pretty interesting. I just don't think the stories he's selected have been the best. In that, I mean, because I like the Imotenjo, the hierarchy, the whole thing with the village, the water, the weird social structure, and the weird like god thing with the white people and the chromiums and all that stuff. Like, it's all fascinating and fun, and it's got something to it. But where's the focus? Where's the thing that makes it compelling? I mean, Fury Road was so plot driven. It was like, we're going to drive away and then we're going to turn around and drive back and then kill everybody. And it's like, it's very stupid. It was really stupid.
Plus, Max is a hood ornament for the whole half the movie.
It's not untrue. Yeah, as we know, I'm not a fan of the film, and I'm not disappointed by the fact that we're not getting any more of this crap.
Agreed.
I'm of the place where I think Mad Max, if it has any future, it has to be saved from George Miller at this point in his politics.
What politics were put into Furiosa? I haven't heard anyone mention that yet. So,
well,
one of the writers of the film came out and said this is a feminist movie.
Well, not only that, from Fury Road, this is, to me, and it's an extension of Fury Road, which had the chick from the Vagina monologues working on it, and they even have like 3-4 stories out there. And George Miller said himself, "I can't help but be a feminist."
Okay, so I mean, yes, it's one thing to say you're a feminist. It's another thing, like, again, I have to make that determination when I see the movie, but it's one thing to say it to try and gain appeal to that group, and it's another thing to actually like execute it in your project. Because I would say
to me
definitely has a feminist lean to it, and a misogynist and a very misogynistic approach as well at the same time.
Well,
men enslaving women to breed, and then of course the women getting the retribution. Both of those play into the both spectrums of that.
Well, none of it fits in the Mad Max universe anyway, was my whole problem with it to begin with. So, anyway.
What universe?
The Mad Max universe.
It's the apocalypse. It's little individual cities and surviving sections that have their own rules and customs.
Okay, but for 3 fucking movies, gas is almost non-existent. And then all of a sudden, they've got tons of it in this fucking one area all of a sudden, somehow, some way, shape, or form. It makes absolutely no fucking sense in the universe. On top of all the other shit. And then George Miller's revisionist history about, oh, Max is like the man with no name bullshit. No, he's the same fucking characters for the first 3 movies. It's obvious as fuck. He has the same injuries. And everything else goes through, gets older. We see his journey, goes from one point to another. Sure, things can happen in between there. I'm not saying they can't. But where in the world did all of a sudden these guys get so much gas that they can run fucking Bigfoots and shoot flames out of there when in that same era, which this is supposed to be in, that Max runs into a supposed refinery where he finds out it's bunk because the fucking tanker's full of sand and the only amount of gas they got left couldn't even fill the back hatch of a fucking truck. That's my fucking point, because at this point, everything is broken down to where by the time they get to Thunderdome, they're literally using pig shit as fuel. You think if there was gas somewhere that they wouldn't be using it? That's the thing. It doesn't fit in the universe. It doesn't
the thing is,
visually fit in the universe either.
You're looking at it as it's something that is a consistent universe, whereas the narrative framework of both Thunderdome and Road Warrior is that we are listening to a narrator describe a story that happened like decades ago. And that's the consistency through it. Like the kids are speaking about, they encountered a guy named Max And the concept is that it's like a dozen people around a campfire exchanging a story about a person that helped them, and then they're just amalgamating that one person into a single individual that we as an audience are experiencing. It's not supposed to be the same person. And it's like a story from like 80 years ago. That's the context that with which Miller did, and he started doing that before he even announced Thunderdome. It's a mythology. It's like the stories of Hercules. If you take a look at all the stories of Hercules, they don't all sync up, but that's the reason for it. That's what he was kind of doing.
I mean, you could accept it as a soft reboot, but at the same time, all they were doing was using Max to build up a feminist character, and the proof is in the pudding when they do a prequel to the character that nobody gave a shit about.
Oh yeah, I would say that Furiosa is the most boring part. The world of Imogen Joe and that colony is more interesting.
And to me, I didn't think he was all that great. I thought he was just kind of a amped up ripoff of the villain from part 2, where to me it was no different than J.J. Abrams going, well, it's not the same thing as a Death Star. It's bigger.
The thing is that I think that we've seen it time and time again. A lot of times when you have this classic trilogy of movies, or even 2 movies that are good, or whatever you want to call Mad Max or Star Wars or anything else, you have a certain filmmaker at the top of their game making probably amongst their best work. And then 30 years later, they're expected to be in that mindset again. And unfortunately, when you're in a certain mindset, when you're in your 30s and you're happening and your mind is working a certain way and there's a certain vibe and there's a certain energy, you can't just go 30 years later and make that happen again. In most cases, it doesn't work. 99% of the time, it's not going to work, even if you're great. Just like Francis Ford Coppola did Godfather 3, and it was stinky because he couldn't do it. George Lucas, he did the prequels. I didn't hate them, but they're not as good as the original trilogy. Peter Jackson did the Hobbit thing. Also, you can't go back and be the same guy you were. No matter what you say, you can't do it.
That's true. Everybody grows in various directions. They're not always beneficial directions. And yeah, I would say, like, again, you have to have a good team. You have to use your experience, and you have to have the right people around you that can exercise the hunger that you had when you were at your peak in order for you to kind of capture a new form of magic, so to speak, right? Like, for instance, with George Lucas, there was nobody around him that would ever challenge or do anything that were hungry enough to say, George, I don't think this is the best idea, but I see the direction you want to go in, and I think there's a better way to approach it. No one would ever pitch that to him. I don't know if George Miller has anyone like that in his crew either, because remember, older people in Hollywood are easily influenced by the younger generation.
Right.
Exactly. Just like that. That's exactly how it is. A dog barks, the old person is like, okay, yes, we're listening to this person.
They want to be trendy. They like these youngsters tell them about all this activism, and they want to be hip to the cause. And then they have a bunch of idiots around them that keep agreeing, like yes men, saying how great they are, and they don't have that edge that they had decades earlier.
I mean, that's unfortunately, right. I think in many art forms, you see it in music, and you definitely see it in film. When people get older, they lose that urgency, that edge. It's like it's a young person's game, you know. Once you get past your 20s, your 30s, pro athletes are not athletes when they're 40 or 50. Now, that's not saying that a painter couldn't paint their best work when they're old, but I just notice a lot of the time it's the exception to the rule when somebody can maintain that highest level as they get into their 40s, 50s, 60s. It's just something, you know, it's not there anymore.
Well, it's the comfortability, and also when you're younger, you have nothing to lose. And when you get older, you've built up something that you actually have to be conscious of. And it's really hard to reconcile that. I mean, like, it's one of the things that I struggle with as a writer. Whenever I'm coming up with an idea, I'm just like, okay, well, is this going to lead to another job, or is this going to be the last thing I ever work on again? You know, and you got to have to reconcile that. And for people in that age, where they've already made, you know, such great hits, and they're contemplating, like, how do I do the next one? It's very much like Dr. Daystrom from Star Trek when he made the M5. He did the duotronics, and he was a savant in his 20s, and for decades nothing new has ever come out of his mind, and then he comes up with an M5 and it ends up killing people on the Enterprise and in Starfleet. That's a sign.
The problem with this,
desperation. Yeah.
The problem is with this is the person that George Miller decided to get on set to challenge him was the chick who wrote the fucking vagina monologues.
Right.
That's the problem.
Big red.
But
flag.
anyway,
and he was proud
moving
of
on.
that. And he was proud of that too.
Moving on, we got some super chats on this, and then I want to get to the Richard Dreyfuss story anyway. Jason Webster says, just make a Mad Max film with Mel Gibson. It's not rocket science. G. I agree. I don't see. And not only that, do it with half the damn budget.
Mhm.
Like that's the other problem is these movies are too high budgeted. Even you could argue that Thunderdome probably had a bit too high of a budget. But anyway, Tennille sends in another super chat for $5. Thank you so much. Says, hey, Script, you ever read anything by Dan Abnett? I know he's not about the topic at hand, but I'm curious. I've just been reading the Horace Hearsay. Well, you haven't, but it sounds like Clobby has.
It was his comic book stuff. I've never read it. If he's done anything else, I don't know about. He and he used to work for Marvel, did a lot of stuff. I'm sure Nick's read a lot of it too.
What's your name again? Oh, Dan Emmett. Oh,
he used to work with Andy Lanning.
Lanning. 2009.
A lot of comic book work.
Great. Just for, I guess this is an easier reference because he's done stuff way before this, but I do love Dan and Andy's Guardians run. That's actually the lamp that's
kind of what Gunn based his movies on.
Yeah. It's good. It was 25 issues. That was I think that was the last time I guess you could say Marvel's in better standings as far
when
as
when was Dan writing Marvel? Like, because I left comic books like
it was
by 2006.
90s into the 2000s.
Yeah, he's been at a while. Yeah. But I'm just
I don't read much Marvel past 89. So
it's fair.
You should
never. Yeah, I shouldn't.
Nor should you.
There is some good stuff if you're willing to open your mind. I'll put it that way.
No, I'll keep mine
closed. You just gotta,
I don't blame anyone.
Right? Mine's closed, but I understand. You're absolutely right, buddy. You're absolutely right.
All right. We got Jason Webster who says with an Australian 10, they sidelined Max Fury Road. Should have been its own thing within the franchise. It should have been called Citadel within the world of Mad Max without Mad Max of having to appear in it. In fact, I made similar argument last night or night before, whatever it was, other day, whatever it was. I don't even remember anymore. No, in fact, they should have done this like M. Night did the Unbreakable sequel, Split.
In Glass.
Yeah, basically don't advertise this as a Mad Max movie. Just put it out as a Furiosa movie to begin with. And then at the end, let the audience know, oh, it is in the same world as Mad Max by letting us see like a young CGI version of Mel Gibson or something like that and see how the audience reacted to that. Then go from there. No, instead, this is the way that Miller did it. And this is kind of where I was getting at with like, this is one of those moments where sometimes a creator needs to either have somebody step in and challenge them and or turn it over to somebody else because they are just not the same person they were. And this is a conversation you and Price were kind of having just a few minutes ago.
And don't listen to modern day marketing because they're retarded.
Unfortunately, yes, that's the bigger problem.
Because again, the first thing I would have said is why don't put Mad Max in the title of a movie that doesn't feature Mad Max? Because people are going to feel betrayed by that. Call it Furiosa and let them walk away with the revelation like, oh man, this is the Mad Max. It's just like, what was it? The Color of Money. And it was a
The Hustler
sequel to The Hustler.
Yeah, exactly.
People loved the revelation of that by that point. No one advertised that this is the sequel to The Hustler.
Well, when I heard rumors that, Split was, I had no desire to see Split because of all the crap before that, from M. Night Shyamalan sucked. But when I heard rumors that it was a sequel to Unbreakable, I'm like, well, now I got to go see.
Yeah,
so I did, and I was happy I did.
Yeah, you want to hear that through the rumors by people having watched it as opposed to marketing just blatantly throwing it up on your there, because now it's like, because one aspect seems like desperation, the other one is intrigue. When word of mouth creates intrigue by like saying Split is a sequel to Unbreakable, that's where people want to go. But when you throw it up on the poster, it's like, no, you're desperate because nobody's going to see this on the merits of its own story unless we throw Mad Max thing on it. It's the same with like everything that's a Star Wars story on Disney Plus that they throw out there.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of like where I was coming from too, because now you have the problem. That's why Furiosa failed. In fact, another thing they did was they lost the female audience. They put a female in the lead officially, and they lost 33% of the female audience from Fury Road. And it was a 60-40 split for Fury Road. That's a pretty goddamn good split for a movie like that.
That is
Most women don't like
this.
this kind of stuff.
Exactly. These movies, and this is what I was saying on the morning show, like these, or whatever show it was again. These movies are guys who like fucking car movies, right? Like all the guys that I knew growing up loving Mad Max were like the gearheads and shit like that.
Right.
No, I think it's an art
sweaty in the
takeaway.
desert. I was just saying, it's sweaty in the desert. You got every reason to get some hunky guys in there and sell it to the ladies.
That's
That's what the women liked was Mel Gibson. That's the thing is, I think Hollywood is misunderstood
they outright ignored it.
And that's the thing. Lionsgate is the only fucking company that even knows that Mel Gibson is still a draw because he still draws outside of the U.S. because they actually promote him. Women love Mel Gibson. They loved him back in the day. Like that was one thing my mom I knew about too. Was her, she would always talk about with her friends and whatnot. They talk about, oh yeah, we're going to see a new Mel Gibson movie because we know that they always said there was a guarantee they were going to see his butt.
Oh yeah, just like Jean-Claude Van Damme.
He always worked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those guys always worked their way into the movie, and they even made fun of it in Loaded Weapon 1.
Yeah.
He's like, "Where are you going?" Nowhere. I just thought it was time for a gratuitous walking in the moonlight butt shot.
So Tom, you hit on earlier that there is a sizable portion of the female audience for Fury Road. Did I hear that correctly?
And Chris Hemsworth didn't bring them back.
Thor didn't even get him there. Not even Thor.
Not even Thor.
You're in trouble when Thor can't do it.
Did I hear that correctly, Tom? We said there was a sizable portion for Fury Road when this came out in 2015. That
yep, 60-40 split. 60% male audience, 40% female audience. This time, though, it's 70, whatever it is, because they lost 33%. So that'd be
okay. So
like here's my 76 or whatever. No, wait.
Here's my take from that.
67% or whatever. Yeah.
I think that goes to show you something that we
76. Yeah.
Said time and time again. Most men love action movies, and that's not a diss towards the women who do love the action movies. A lot of them, that when they get into something, they're getting into it because it's the talk of the conversation at that time. And there was a lot of conversation amongst Fury Road at the time. It's that whole line. What's that guy? What's his name? Oh, Richard Myers said, most people like things that are popular when it's popular because it's popular. And there was a lot of that conversation around Fury Road. And now that it's no longer the talk of the town as far as being a movie, a lot of those people fled. And, probably a lot of ladies who want to be there for the moment, they kind of fled after it was no longer the thing at the time. The few girls that
I think the ladies of 10 years ago are not the same as the ladies of today. That's the other part.
That's part of the problem. And the other thing is they should have geared this more towards the Fast and the Furious audience. Yeah. This was their biggest fucking mistake. And this is what I've been saying from the start. Yes, you can say they're well made. They're all these things. You can even say they're good films. But the cognitive dissonance comes in when people just won't admit that these are feminist agenda driven films. And that's what drove the audience away in droves. Because the first film didn't play that well. It only got a boost because of the Oscar buzz and shit that came after the fact. And then it won I think 6 out of its 10 Oscars or whatever. And I'm just like, fucking whatever. It was not worth it.
Without that, it would have been a box office disaster.
Exactly. It would have been a complete disaster.
With that, it just broke even.
And I don't even know if that's true because, like I said, when I was doing research, I found that according to Hollywood Reporter, they lost somewhere between $30 and $40 million overall after it was all said and done.
It's possible. It wouldn't surprise me.
Right? Huh?
It was
so basically everything. Yeah.
That movie was a snooze, to be honest.
Because the budget was a little bit higher than they reported on top of everything else. And I don't know if they're factoring in other things too. It's hard to say.
Well, marketing and P&A in 2014, 2015 was only a third of what it is today. So you don't have to hit as high a threshold to pass on, say, $150 to $200 million budget as you did back in the day. So, yeah, I mean, you'd have to go back over. I mean, if Warner Brothers had a pocket, which is most studios do, of like, this is our sweet spot of where we know we're making money off this film, and Fury Road fell short of that pocket, that could explain why George Miller had to do the lawsuit. And then if the DVD sales and then the secondary distribution windows of network, cable, and streaming didn't bring in any additional cash to get into that pocket, then yeah, you've got yourself that box office decline. But then that gets obfuscated by the awards it won, and that And then
that was what happened is they
Kevin
re-released
Tsujihara
it.
was because this was when Kevin Tsujihara was head of Warner Brothers, and he he championed Fury
Friendly with the
Road, if I
actresses.
remember correctly.
Yes. So what happened was that when it came out initially, it fell flat on its fucking face. Then the Oscar buzz ramped up because there was some word of mouth around it. It did have some legs, but it didn't have enough legs to make money. Because I remember when it first left theaters, I want to say it was probably 100 or so better in the hole. But then after the Oscars came around, they re-released it again. And between that re-release and the video, they got themselves close to profitable, but they still, like, that's where Deadline and all them were factoring in that between P&A and everything else, they still lost somewhere between $40 million. And I don't even know how much the lawsuit and payout cost with George Miller, because I'm assuming they paid him out to get this deal made, would be my guess too. So, because they probably just said, fuck it, we don't want to argue with him anymore. Because I think that went on for a couple of years. But
Well, yeah, because it definitely delayed this movie.
it did by a long shot.
Yeah. And then the other part too is when Kevin Tsujihara was ousted, and then the regime at Warner Brothers was all over the place. I think the only reason we got Furiosa was because too much money was spent for it not to have gone into production at that point, and Zaslav probably didn't want to write it off.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, they may have thought that there was a. Here's the thing: the video. It did do like 50 or so million on video. But yeah.
Yeah, because the pre-sales for Furiosa would have been done in 2018. So that had been before Zaslav was there. So they've been stuck with that deal regardless.
Right. And I mean, on paper, you could look at it and go, yeah, this is a risk. And the biggest risk of it was, like I said, I'm not saying this thing shouldn't even exist. So like, even those people are like, oh, you just don't like blah, 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 whatever. No, it should have been a fucking streaming series. That's what it should have been at half the budget.
Oh, yeah. Robert Meyer Burnett tweeted somebody that did an analysis on it saying that it was initially geared to be more like the Animatrix was as a companion to the Matrix Reloaded and Resurrections. And I'm thinking, no, that would have been better. Like, a lower budget, either broken up into like a mini set of like 3 short DVDs or whatever model you want to do to complement the thing. Because, I mean, listen, I have to give George Miller props. He made a world that is actually really interesting to explore, and you don't necessarily need Mad Max to do it. But the thing is, because he relied on the Mad Max name, he then basically overshadowed what he was trying to accomplish.
He should have built up the Wasteland name or whatever as a brand is what he should have done.
Right.
Yeah, he should have just called like Fury Road the Wasteland, and then it's just like, okay, now we're talking about, well, what's this situation and what's going on. And if you wanted to do you could do it at any time, because I think, to your point, they have that one town that makes gasoline that feeds, the Citadel and whatnot. Well, let's figure out why what's so important about this one town. And is this the only town on the whole continent of Australia that does it? And are they constantly under attack? And then they have trade routes and stuff that they have to negotiate with. And if so, what's the thing that the Citadel has to offer aside from milk to this village that does gasoline? Like, there's politics. I mean, there's like in-world politics there you could have fun with, using all the post-apocalyptic aspects of what George Miller did with Mad Max.
He should have just called it the Wasteland, and then after the fact we realized, oh, the Wasteland is the world that Mad Max lives in. Because they could also get the fuck out of Australia. We could see what's going on in other places too.
Right.
That's what I've said about Star Wars and other things, and Star Trek other times too. It's like, the problem is they're always so concentrated on this one little area. Like if I go to Tatooine one more fucking time, I'm gonna puke.
or a planet that is Tatooine but not in name.
Oh fuck. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure that's one thing that bothers George to no goddamn end. He's probably sitting there going, I wouldn't have such a problem if we just get the fuck out of Tatooine. Biggest mistake I ever made was going back there in the prequels.
He went there 4 times in that original trilogy. In the original saga, he went there 4 times?
Something like that, yeah.
No, technically, no, 5, because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, they're on Tatooine again. Right. So yeah, 5 times you're on the same damn planet.
Yeah.
Because he, I think he that was kind of his little joke at it, and because in Return of the Jedi, I don't even think they went to Tunisia to shoot it, just because it's just the sand dunes and shit. I think they just shot it in the desert outside of California or somewheres. I'd have to look, but like even there, you got the comment where like Looks like you're not missing anything, basically.
Yeah, I grew up here.
Women like movies like Barbie. I mean, yes, there's probably 10 to 20% of the women that like the kind of stuff that we like, but probably 80% of them like Barbie. They like rom-coms and stuff like that. This Furiosa thing was never going to appeal to them, and I think that studios just keep on doing the same stupid thing over and over again, and I don't know how many times they have to do it and
Well,
how much money they have to lose in order to learn the lesson.
and I'd argue it
Once
could
again,
appeal to women.
The thing is, you can appeal to certain women, but most of them are not into this type of thing. The ones who are, they love it for what it is. But a lot of the other ones are, if they're going to get into it, they're going to be into it because, once again, it's the topic of the town. Most of them, and even some men, are like, they hop on the thing that's the fad. Once again, Fury Road came out at a time where that it was a fad to be talking about this movie. And you could say that kind of sums up conversation for all our beloved IPs, that when they are the thing to talk about, they hop on it because they want to simply just be a part of the conversation, even if they don't have the same investment that people like us do. Thank you, Kershaw. Yeah, it's flavor of the week time. It's a flaky demographic that they want to think that they can replace the geeks and the nerds and the diehard fans with all these IPs and think that the normies can replace us, which, yeah, you'll get maybe a few short-term wins. And I think if you want to call Fury Road a win, which that's still up for debate, even if you want to call it that, it's still nothing more than a short-term one. These things are meant to be made for people who are all about it, and they think that they can replace us. They cannot, and they still can see that lesson.
The thing I see about with this is Furiosa is basically 8 years later, I'm finally getting vindication, just like we all did after the Marvels came out and Black Panther 2 and so many other films that we said were going to fail. And the first films were not the rule, but an exception to the rule because insert whatever reason here. Right. So here we go again with another example. And again, it's poor timing on top of it all. And in fact, I would have said it would have done even worse if it had come out when it was supposed to, probably, because that would have been in the heart of this shit. And I think more people would possibly agree with me from where I'm coming from. And again, I'm not saying anything's wrong for anybody's wrong for liking it. I'm not saying you can't like it. I'm not trying to change your mind. My issue is with the whole cognitive, dissonance with this idea that it can't be woke because it's good. Both things can be true. Just because you have a competent director who made something that's woke doesn't mean it's not woke. I mean, the first film, I would argue, and probably concede a lot of arguments that, yes, this is probably the better way to do one of these woke type movies with this type of messaging. Fury Road isn't unwatchable, but I have my issues with it.
The chaos part of me kind of loves that, though. We have all this woke stuff that's really, really bad.
Yeah.
So we could say it's really, really bad.
Well,
it's obvious. It's easy. But
and
what happens when we get some really, really awesome entertainment that's also woke? And that's just pure chaos.
I think
it's still woke, but it's still really good.
You've had a lot
of
problem
is this Furiosa isn't as good as a lot of people are like. I've heard more mixed reactions to Furiosa than the positive. The only positives I'm really hearing are from like the diehards. But anyway, you're going to say something, Clubby. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Sorry. I'm just going to say that but the entire history of Hollywood is replete with examples of really, really, really good movies that have woke, quote unquote, woke, way before the term was good, in elements in them. Like, how many times have I seen a film, read a comic, read a book or whatever, where there's stuff in there inserted by the creators or the authors where I'm going to roll my eyes going, oh, that's a bunch of crap. But I still love the movie, or I still love the book. That was when there was some subtlety and there were plenty of artists working in the field that still cared about their craft. And so that's how you do it, if you're going to do it at all. And but now there was still activism, but it was also art. Now our problem is lately, over the past 10 years, whatever, it's been mostly activism supplanting art for the most part. And so when something comes along, because everyone I know that has seen this film, I have no interest in it myself, have said it's pretty good. Even people who do fight this culture war about the wokeness and stuff have said it's pretty good. It's got positive reviews, even though they agree with the points you guys are making about calling it Mad Max. But still, it doesn't mean it doesn't have some of that stuff in there as well.
And I agree that I should see a film before commenting on it. And I have not seen Furiosa, but I've listened to about 4 or 5 or more reviews now. And even the good ones they start going through the story of the film, because I was listening to even like Drinkers Breakdown a bit earlier, and they were going through it like bit by bit. And even they couldn't even answer some of this stuff. And I'm like, how are you guys not seeing that she's this hero that can just do things without any fucking explanation then? Because I haven't even seen the movie, and the way you guys are explaining it, you're dancing around it and trying to make excuses for a movie that doesn't show you anything. Because they're trying to figure out, they're like, well, how did she lose her arm? Oh, she was cut 1 minute, and the next minute, I don't know, she ripped it off, she chewed it
I'll
off.
tell you why. I'll tell you what the deal is. When you go see or watch whatever, a film or a movie that you did enjoy, by and large, you're going to be more well disposed towards it, and it's human nature, a little bit more forgiving.
That's true. But like, one of the other things is, like, you brought this up, Price, the other night on the show, and I don't know if you were here yet, Script, I can't remember. I don't think you made the show last time. But this all made us fucking cackle, because we were trying to figure out, she cuts her hair off in the film. Okay. This is why she shaved it down, to make a wig out of her own hair to wear.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. And then the plan with that is that when she goes to escape, they go to grab her hair, and she keeps going because she's a wig and not her real hair anymore. Now, my whole thing is, did they set that up in any way? And Price said, no, not really. And I'm like, well, then that's fucking stupid. How does she know he's going to grab his hair and not her arm and not her body or something else?
Yeah, if there's a scene where she's constantly being grabbed by her hair, and that's the thing
that's what I was asking. Like, do they set
right,
that up?
But
at
that's
least?
not enough. That's not enough to make her think that they'll only ever grab her by the hair. You know?
That's what I was saying. I'm like, that makes absolutely. That's one of the things that bothers me most in film writing is when they have something that in the film where it happens to come down to somebody has to do something out of complete happenstance for their plan to work.
Right,
and you better hope that 1 out of 100 fucking chance happens. And it always works out in movies, of course. But if you don't even set it up, like, you can set stuff up like that, like you just said, Script. All you have to do is set up that that's how they grab the girls all the time, is they constantly dragging them by their hair or something like that. So she knows that that's what they're going to do, right?
Yes, because that's how you do it. Or if maybe there's something where she's wiry and she can always slip out of their grip, so the only way that they can hold on to her is by grabbing her by the hair, because that's the one thing that they can't. You know,
it was too convenient.
The symbol of her femininity.
It was too convenient in the movie for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe it's something that was lost in the edit. I'll give him that, but yeah, and again, I haven't seen it, so that's the farthest I'll comment on
I saw it, and I'm not sure I'm the one that you were talking with about it.
Maybe it was somebody else, but yeah.
But I agree. What I'll say is that there was a very minor planting that this one guy comes up to her and kind of plays with her hair. Now, the fact that at that moment he plays with her hair doesn't mean that same guy will always just play with her hair. But thinking that she's going to run into the same guy again, she shaves her head, makes a wig out of the hair, and then, like, she stands there and he, like, starts playing with her hair, so she runs away. It seems like a lot of investing time and energy into something that doesn't quite make sense, and it's, even as a planting and payoff, it's not very strong, in my opinion.
Well, and even in the last film, like, I saw, like, there's just too much of the girl bossness in it, and a lot of people claim, oh, she earned it, she did this, she did that. It's like, when in the world did she learn how to put together a robotic arm in a world that can barely keep cars and shit together?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, like,
maybe she saw that old video from like the 1930s of the guy with that wooden arm and he's doing the hammers and the opening bottles and stuff, and she's like, I can do that.
Even at that point, Drinker was like, making like fucking Evil Dead jokes. I'm like, all right, what did she say, groovy after she put it on, or what?
I don't know.
Let's get through the rest of these super chats so we can get to the Richard Dreyfuss story, because I know Six is in the house. Huzzah! And she wants to hear about that. Tennille, thank you so much. She also helped me do some research on that, so thank you, Six. I know you're technically not working, but you are not working.
We still love you, though.
Yes. Jason Webster sent in Australian 10 and said, this would have created the opportunity to run 2 separate properties concurrently, alternating between the releasing Mad Max films and films on the cinema. Not only that, you could build video games off it, novels, comic books. You have the Wasteland Africa, Wasteland America, Wasteland UK. You have all over the world you can go. See what's going on in different places. See what led up to this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Just have a parallel thing to the original Mad Max, because that's when society fell in that movie.
Pretty much. You're seeing it on the brink of the fall, and then between the 2 films, that's when everything fell apart completely. Yeah. And anyway, and then I love the other thing that people are like, well, you got to show this and that because, society wouldn't break down that fast. I'm like, were you alive in 2020?
Remember the Chaz?
Exactly what I said. I'm like, remember the Chaz? That shit lasted about a week. And then you go in there and that shit looked like fucking Thunderdome. And not only that, when shit went down with COVID, you walk into a Walmart, that shit's like Road Warrior. You got people running down the fucking aisle throwing their kids and shit. Like, it's fucking crazy. You're like, oh, well, we lost her. She's only 2. We didn't get that attached to her. The toilet paper's more important. Anyway, Tennille says, oh God, no, I retract my previous use of duh and replace it with the. Even as a joke, it makes my skin crawl because nerd. Well, that's all right. Hopefully I did it justice. Tennille then also says with a member chat, thank you for that. Turns out the line mediocre was remarkably self-aware. That is henceforth my headcanon. You're not the only person I've seen say that now. Tennille asks if Get the Gringo a Lionsgate picture. I believe it was. So I think the last studio picture that Mel Gibson headlined was that Into Darkness movie or whatever the hell it was called. And Warner Brothers pretty much buried that thing.
Edge of Darkness. That was an
Edge of
adaptation of
Darkness.
British TV show. In fact, I know one of the producers of the original British TV show. No, he was in. I mean, he was in the Mark Wahlberg.
He's been in things, but I'm talking about his last starring role that was a studio
lead?
picture.
Well,
Yeah.
he's not a lead anymore because he's works with Mark Wahlberg in a number of things.
That and he's done like Fat Man and other things. Like Lionsgate will still hire him pretty often.
Actually, a lot of smaller studios will hire him right now.
Yeah.
In fact, if he's in another movie, doesn't have to be a supporting, but if he's in another movie that ends up being a hit, he will be in better graces with Hollywood right now.
Could be
again,
Passion of the Christ 2 and 3. That's coming out, I guess.
Well, Hollywood's in a transition phase right now. A lot of the stuff that Disney led the charge on is no longer status quo, and other talent is getting opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't have had 2-3 years ago. Mel Gibson might come back. A whole bunch of other actors that have been gone might come back. I mean, what was it? Kevin Spacey might be returning because he's been exonerated for all the things that apparently
that kind of happens when your witnesses turn up dead.
Dead or also proven to be lying.
That too. Yeah, I will give him that. But look, yeah, Gibson, he's got that role in the hotel show. They give him stuff here and there. He's in tight with like Angel Studios and some other people. He produced, or he was one of the people who put up money or produced Sound of Freedom in the background. I can't remember. I don't think is he listed as a credit?
So yeah, he did that with Fox, and it happened to be purchased by Angel Studios. You have to remember, Angel Studios.
That's true. But he also is doing that Diddler documentary and stuff like that. And then I did research because I looked. He's shooting or just got done shooting Passion of the Christ 2. And it's such a big movie, he's splitting it into 2 parts. That's what I heard last. And I have a feeling that'll be a big hit for him. And otherwise, he's supposed to direct Lethal Weapon 4 or 5. But I think the studio has been resistant. That's why we haven't heard anything lately. That's what I'm saying. Is like, unless certain people fight for him, they just don't seem to want to work with him.
Warner Brothers has the contract for Lethal Weapon 5, and it is currently in negotiations right now. Again, I think you're only going to get a trigger pull on Lethal Weapon 5 if the next thing that Mel Gibson is associated with is a hit. And actually, the same thing's going to be with George Miller. If George Miller produces or directs something small that ends up being a hit, he will get his Wasteland opportunity again.
Well, and like I've told people, don't sit there and pretend that. Quit getting hero worshipping over George Miller. Yeah, right. He's done some good things, but don't forget this is the same fucker that made Babe 2. And Happy Feet 2. Right? Like, so don't, no.
Happy Feet itself was good, yeah, but Happy Feet 2 is just.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't say the first one. I didn't say shit about Babe. I said Babe 2 and Happy Feet 2.
Yeah, there's only one Babe movie and one Happy Feet.
Yeah, Babe 2 was a disaster and a half. Like, I don't even know where that doesn't even feel like it's made by the same people.
It was way more cartoony, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like one of those straight to video fucking sequels from some hack director.
It was one of those times where I really actually disagreed with Ebert.
Why did he give that a positive review?
He gave it 4 stars. And we
Oh,
went to
'cause
s-
he's-
I went and saw
Ebert
it. and I
does
was
that
really messed
shit.
up. He was old at that point.
I love him, but he gave it. You know why he did that? Because he loved the first one. That's why.
He
He
did.
does that shit, and he probably will. He said stupid stuff like that before. I love watching old Ebert, and especially when he's Siskel
me
and
too.
Ebert back in the day,
Oh,
because Siskel will call him out on his shit.
right.
It's like, how the fuck can you like that movie? Like, I just do, Gene.
I mean, I like the concept of like being in New York City. There's something like that's why I thought I was gonna like it
Muppets
more
did
than I
it
did,
better.
but it just didn't seem to just didn't come together.
I mean, it just, yeah, as a kid's movie, fine, whatever. But a follow up to Babe, Babe was like above and beyond, right? Like that was a movie that had no right to be as good as it was. And it kind of got him out of, wasn't he already in semi-director jail at that point for some other shit? I can't remember now. But yeah, I'm probably remembering wrong. But anyway, Tennille sends in another super chat for 2. It says, March, excuse me, months all blur together. Oh, no worries. And that goes off of this one where he says, oh, please, the Oscars' only value is that it gets me laid. Took a co-worker to it in March. But anyway,
At least it's good
not
for
that I am biased. Why would you think that?
At least it's good for something then. Yeah.
That's right. Jason Webster then sends in another 10 Australian. Thank you. So don't forget the reaction to Y2K in 1999. I remember a documentary where people were stocking their bunkers, withdrawing money to stash around their houses, and heading to the hills to bury possessions. Not only that, part of the reason I got to work on some independent movies is because of that, because the guy that owned the company that I worked for and had all the equipment to make movies with, like a bunch of high-end digital stuff at that time, HD cams and everything. His mother was so into this Y2K shit, and they produced a video for it. So after Y2K, we had a whole stockroom just chock full of VHSs of this fucking thing. And we were trying to think of ways that we could use them. And that was what we were going to do. We were going to do like some shorts, and this was only like a 30-minute tape. We're like, well, we can use all those tapes up by doing this kind of thing, in a cartoon and this and that. And, just coming up with ideas and stuff. And it just never quite worked out. But yeah, that was quite the to do about nothing. But anyhow, with that, unless anybody else has any Y2K stories.
None here. Man, all I can remember is laughing at it when I was a kid, and all the adults getting very mad at me for laughing at it.
None of the adults around me were actually worried about it because in Canada we didn't really have that problem.
You didn't have any computers?
No, we
I
had
just
tons
remember-
of computers. We just figured out how to get around it a lot quicker than everybody else.
I'm still not even sure it was going to be that big of a problem as they made it out to
No, it was
be.
overrated, the whole thing.
It
I don't know,
was
That's
the-
what I
overrated.
think.
The big thing around here is everyone wanted to have sex because it was the last night on Earth.
Oh shit. Anyhow, so let's get into this story. This is something I've been covering. And in fact, I think I've been on top of almost more than anybody else, it seems like and feels like, especially with Six's help. This Richard Dreyfuss story that blew up. At first I saw it, I just kind of let it be, and then I noticed that the media was just coming out after him in just full force attack. And the short version of what we've already covered from Tuesday for mostly the people that missed it and Scripps benefit, because I think he was the only one who wasn't here, is basically that there was this screening for Jaws, and Richard Dreyfuss was set to talk before the show, a meet and greet, and then a Q&A. And the meet and greet and Q&A either lasted 90 minutes or the Q&A lasted 90 minutes with an intermission. I can't remember which. But we'll get to that because there's actually the guy who showed the video that we showed the other night where Richard Dreyfuss came in a dress and then he left after talking about his book. That's the only video we got. Well, that individual spoke out on a podcast. So we're going to go to that in just a few minutes. But we also had somebody reach out to us personally and drop their story. I don't know if it's him or her, but it's Sharky Pal is the name. And this was their recollection of that night.
Ugh.
And I will
You're in
say
dark
this
mode?
before I read it. Huh? Yeah, I'm always in dark mode.
No wonder
Uh,
you have trouble reading things. You can't read properly in dark mode.
I can't read in when it's in bright. It just blurs my eyes out, man. Basically, I'll go through this because I just want to say up front before we go to the other interview the reason I believe this and I trust this is because it lines up with a lot of the shit that the guy said in the other interview that was not out there in the press. So I believe this is legit. So Sharky Pal wrote this 2 hours after our show yesterday. Hi, Midnight's Edge, longtime listener, first-time commenter. I'm reaching out because I was at the Richard Dreyfuss screening Saturday night, and I wanted to offer my experience to the best of my memory. The show did open with him coming out in a dress. I'll admit I didn't understand what the Joker reference was, but the audience was 100% into it. We saw that video. Most of the interview was Richard going through his filmography and discussing the biggest moments of his career. There were no issues until he made a joke about working with Barbra Streisand, and it was hard to hear since I was towards the back and the mic was low. He said it was fun to tell her no on the set of the movie since others were too scared to. He made the joke about saying to women or not listening to women, and this triggered someone in the audience. A woman called out, "Excuse me," and then Richard made a comment about how he disagrees with the modern day LGBTQ movement. Okay, so there's a part here that Sharky Pal missed that is in the other interview we'll get to that I think you'll see is important. This caused some boos, and then he explained that he didn't want a 10-year-old girl, or didn't think a 10-year-old girl should be allowed to get a gender reassignment surgery. This caused people to get up and walk out. It wasn't 100 like the article says, though. It was more like 20 or 30 people. And this also is confirmed by the interviewee, as you'll hear in just a few minutes. People in the venue that seated roughly 500, also confirmed by the other individual. The remainder of the interview was fine afterwards until Richard was discussing having lunch with a Republican friend of his to discuss the Madoff film. And this was also brought up in the interview we're about to see a bit of. It says, at this point, the woman from the before, not sure why she didn't walk out with the others. And I think this is important. I want to key in on this woman here for a minute. Because I think this is that rogue mama that started this whole fucking thing to begin with. For Script, who, if you may not remember I don't know if you got to that part with me or not. Rogue mama is this person who spouted off on X, and she said she only went down there to see if they had canceled the event in the first place. I think she went in, and I think this is her. I think she was stirring this on. But somebody said, who cares, and none of your business. And from that moment on, it was fine for the rest of the night, basically. There was no other incidences after that. Like you saw in the video, the audience that stayed was very enthusiastic and cheered for his message on civics in schools. I'm not here to pass judgment on Mr. Dreyfuss or the audience or the theater. I just wanted to tell the full story of my best of my memory and be accurate as far as fair as possible. Again, I was in the back, so I had trouble hearing at certain times. Other people near me were commenting and the mic was very low. The sad part is I saw Richard Dreyfuss about 9 years ago, and he was much livelier than he was this time around. He appeared frail and trouble projecting his voice. I'm worried that he will not make it to the 50th anniversary of Jaws. He was acting like his time left was short, and he knows it. I hope he is remembered for his body of work and not for his 2024 political views. Okay, and there was more on this with his son, because his son did say the comment about why he didn't let his dad have his Twitter password, and then there was a story written about it, and I'm not going to go into too deep into that, but basically his son did make a statement about how that was not reflective of that night necessarily, and he also was not there that night. So his son can't comment on that, basically, in so many words. That's a short version of that. So anyway, let's get over to this interview then quick. But before we do, anybody got any questions, anything else they want to say real quick before we do?
Nope, not me.
The only thing I'd say is 20 to 30 people out of 500 is about 5% of the population.
Exactly. And as we'll learn here about how much it costs and all that kind of stuff, I don't know how much of this interview we're going to get into because it's not too long. It goes to about this point in the show. This is a Mike O'Mara show. I just want to say this up front because I watched it. This is the guy that took the video again that we saw last night. He doesn't really explain why he stopped taking video other than the sound quality of the microphone was crap is the best I can get out of it. But then this Mike and Mira or whatever the hell the other guy's name is, they keep trying to push him into basically saying that Richard was acting like a bigot for some reason. Like they really, really are trying to push him there, as you'll see as we get going here. So I'm going to play part of this. I don't know how much of this I'm going to play because I don't want to get dinged too bad. Because especially considering I don't agree with these guys, I'm sure they're not going to be too happy with me using their video.
And what happened was your video, just to be clear, your video stops.
I'm going to speed it up just
when the
bit.
microphone falls off, correct?
What you know what it was? It was the stage hands were terrible, not lit at all. It was very dark, and the mic had a handheld mic. They
Sure.
gave him like a neck
Right.
mic,
Lot
and
of
it was the audio was terrible. That's why I just got the entrance, and him coming in with the dress on.
Okay.
You know, doing the whole bit
All
like
right,
that.
so he comes in with the dress. You stop. Do you stop shooting after the mic falls off? Is that when you stop videoing?
Once he sits down, I stopped shooting because you know what? I don't want to be a pain in the butt to anybody behind me because you know you can see the light reflecting from the video. So you know, I didn't want to do that.
Totally
and,
understood.
And they said, and the mic stunk.
So all right, so the mic stunk, and he gets it back on him, and the audio is not good, is what you're saying. Hard to hear even in the theater.
Very low, and he speaks kind of low, and he's in his own train of thought as it is. And the woman that's the host is going around on tour with him. So basically, he's going around to a lot of theaters doing meet and greets.
All right, and if this is the truth, if you guys, when we get to the point where I'm talking about, I would fire this bitch.
And then
But
coming
anyway.
out, doing a retrospective of his life.
You'll find
career
out
and
why.
Movies, and then they show the screening of the
So,
movie. Right.
So let me ask
I
that.
wanted some sexual energy.
I could have done a hell of a lot better. And if anything, she kind of steered him in a certain way. Listen, it was 2 instances of
This is what I'm talking
talk
about.
that people went.
All right,
nuts
then
about.
let's get to that. Few questions leading up to it. When you got there, is the audience made aware of any kind of time frame as to how long he will be speaking before the movie starts?
Okay, so let's just go back a little. He did a New Jersey Pack Center, right? And the way you should do it, and I did the meet and greet. So you should do it. You do a meet and greet. You do the conversation. You show the movie because the man has seen the movie. He's been in the movie, living through the movie for 50 years. You don't keep a 76-year-old man waiting 2 hours and 10 minutes. And then let's have a conversation about your life.
All right.
You know, it just
So they
doesn't work
front
that
loaded.
way. But exactly. So I did the meet.
Okay, so people then, so if anybody did leave during the meet and greet and demanded their money back, they'd already seen the movie. That's what this guy is saying. So normally they do it the other way around, and I agree with him. So that was probably a late night for Richard on top of it all. So we're gonna keep going here, but like he led into it and then they kind of moved him away from it, but he'll get back into it here because the point I was getting to is basically there's only 2 times at the night where it seemed like it deviated from where Jaws was being talked about, and one time is because of the Barbra Streisand story, and as you'll see here, it's the interviewer who leads him into the other shit.
The meet and greet, pleasant as can be. He even actually hit on Debbie. He took a picture with her. I swear to God, it's so funny.
No,
He
this
took a
shit's
picture
really
with a
that
big
important. I'm
smile.
gonna jump ahead
I mean,
of
I
you a
brought a
little bit.
Jaws clapboard that they used. I just put it down. So now they go into the respective of his career.
Retrospective, right?
Yeah.
I'm.
That's all right. Go ahead.
sorry
Go ahead.
about that.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
no.
Because I know you would kill Rob when he would say,
No,
say words like
no
that. So
problem.
anyway, he goes into his career, and it gets to the point of talking about him with Barbra Streisand in the movie Nuts, and he says, well, she has her own ways about doing things, and she wanted to come across doing this certain scene, and he goes, have you ever been in a jury before? Ever been in court? She goes, no. Well, the words you think you're going to say that's going to be so shocking, it's said every single day in court. Like the offensive words, whatever, because she played a prostitute that murders a guy in the movie. So now he goes into a whole tirade of basically women he still feels that should be in the kitchen and not be heard. He still has that 1950s, 1940s mentality about how women should
So is
be.
he referencing Barbra
that-
Streisand when he says that? I'm trying to get the gist of what was said here.
Yeah, he leads that way. Basically, like, you should take direction this way. I'm recommending to you. Don't think that what you're saying is an original thought. I recommend just do it this way, and like telling her what you should do. And that's where he went into about women being, like, well, you should look pretty and not be heard. So people are like, So now the host is, instead of, okay, let's go on to another story. She goes, well, what do you think about the Me Too movement?
Oh, okay.
There
All
you
right,
go. So and now again, I think he's bouncing around some context here. I want to hear the actual because I heard another iteration of this story now where the person that was saying something about it said it seemed like to them, because I was reading around, that the story he was telling about Barbra Streisand was more about, and he might even bring it up here, I think it in later on is what it is. Basically, it come across to him like he was telling Barbara, the director does his job, you stay in your lane and do your job. That was kind of more the moral story. Now, I'm not saying it was good the way that he came across, because clearly something he said in the story didn't come out the way that it was meant to, or was supposed to be a joke and didn't come off that way. Or like he said, he's getting the impression of, little bit of sexism, or quite a bit of sexism, let's say, in Richard's tone in this story. Now, again, I don't know the context. That's what I'm asking, is like, is it a story from that time period? Because if it's a story from that time period, Richard probably was a much different guy back then, as was most other people in the industry, was my point.
I have something else to add. I have something important to add, Tom.
Go ahead.
Who gives a shit? He's Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
He's 1,000,000 years old.
Right.
Let him sit and talk about his movie. Who gives a shit? I don't understand all these weirdos that sit around and get offended all day. He told a story from like 70 years ago about some woman who's annoying, and everybody knows she's annoying, and he probably said that she annoyed him. And who
Becca
cares?
Streisand.
I was going to say, I've heard I don't know how many stories about Barbara Streisand being a bitch. And that's kind of the other thing that somebody said, was like, it was more so just he wasn't going to put up with her shit, was the story.
Right.
Everybody was kind of impressed that Richard was one of the only people who had the balls to stand up to Becca Streisand.
Good.
But anyway, that being said, the thing that I was getting to and get past that is that from there, the interviewer herself, why the fuck is she asking him in the middle of a Jaws thing off of this question, clearly that she was triggered off of, is my guess. What do you think about the Me Too movement? If that isn't fucking setting him up, I don't know what is.
Well, welcome to journalism, dude. I mean, that's what they all do these days. I mean, why do you
But
think
that's
you
my
have so many
point, is
celebrities
supposedly
saying
if
dumb
she's supposed to
stuff?
be working with him, right? That was my point, though, Script, just for pretense, but yeah.
Sure. But that's also the commonality of it. Like every single one of the trades, all the reporters, all they're trying to do is set up a celebrity to get a quote that could either embolden their position or be controversial enough for them to take them down. And that's why you get a lot of celebrities saying dumb stuff, because, again, as I've said, with very few exceptions, most celebrities are morons. They fall for this stuff very easily.
Yeah. So anyway, so he asked the Me Too
She
thing.
is she
became an
she is
instigator.
she is an ally in moving this conversation into this direction. She's probably doing this because he wants her to do this, correct?
No, I'm telling you, it just came out of nowhere. She
See, they're
said
trying
that
to
say
lead
that to
it a
him,
different
and
direction.
then he went on a little bit of a tirade about how he feels how women should be and how women should act and this and that. And then he goes into about kids' gender.
Okay. How did that give us
you
as
know?
much specific if you can?
Go ahead, Josh.
The host doesn't know that he has to ask a question. That's funny.
He felt that
I think there's a
you
delay.
don't have
That
a
was the
10-year-old
problem.
come up to you and tell you what sexuality they should be. You should be telling them at that age that they should be a boy or a girl.
Okay, so he
Because-
is moving into an area where that has absolutely nothing to do with A, Jaws, B, his career, or any of this, and he's just
Okay, but so was
ranting
the
about
question.
something
That was my point.
obviously
Yeah.
he wants to talk about.
Right. It was on. All of a sudden, that became on his mind, and then all of a sudden, here came the booze. I heard a guy actually get up and go, "Good night, Grandpa," and walk right out of the
So the
theater.
theater's turning
they
on him
made
a little bit.
You know what, Mike? I got to tell you, they made like a lot of people left. I heard, in actuality, maybe about 30 people left, and it was a sold-out show.
Okay. All
How
right.
much did it cost to go to the show? Not the meet
Oh,
and greet, but just
Maron
the
and
show.
me.
Maron. Hey, Maron, Rob, Maron.
Well, okay, I'll tell you.
Okay,
The meet
so
and greet-
do we need to hear any more from there? Or are you guys good for now?
No,
or-
these guys are annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the host doesn't know how to ask questions, and it's not.
Yeah,
a
I know,
delay.
and
just
he
lets
keeps
it
trying to lead him, and that's the thing. He really starts to piss me off after a bit, because he's all like trying to get him to go down the road of trying to call Richard a fucking bigot and shit.
I mean, I said, like, if 5% of the audience walked out, that seems about reasonable for 5% nut jobs.
Yeah.
And by walking out, they silenced their own right to be heard. So all the people that were left were the ones that were cheering and enjoying the show, except maybe that one lady. And look, sounds like she got she got told. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird that she jumped from that question to there. That's the thing that really kind of rubs me weird. Because I'm like, why would you even set him up that like? And then I wonder if he didn't go from that. And that's why I want video of this, because I want to see the context for myself. Because I feel like he was probably going from, okay, this bitch is going to set me up with a Me Too question. Well, I'm just going to say this, you know? And I think that's what happened, to be honest with you. I could be wrong. I'm speculating here, but that's all we can do at this point with the information we're given, because we're given, now we have a couple different what I would say salacious accounts of what happened. from people who are clearly trying to make this a bigger deal than it sounds like it really was, in my opinion, because between the amount of people that supposedly walked out, it's not nearly as many as the press and some other people are leading us to believe, it sounds like here. The conversation, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't sound like it was nearly as controversial as they're making it out to be. Now, sure, I agree. If you're there to see a movie, I don't care if you're liberal, right, left, whatever the fuck you think you are. I don't want to hear your fucking lecture on politics in general, whether you're from the right, left, or the other, it doesn't matter. But if it's a 90-minute meet and greet or a 90-minute Q&A session and literally 2 questions out of it and the amount of time that it sounded like that actually took out of the show, I don't think that's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. And this is clearly a hit job on Richard Dreyfuss. Only because of his politics.
I'll put myself on the other side here. If I went to see Mark Hamill talk about his time with Star Wars and he made a couple of comments that I didn't like, I wouldn't walk out. I wouldn't jeer him. I would, okay, if he spent 90 minutes going on and on and on, I might get a little bit like worn out by it. I might not have that much patience, but
well, if he goes 90 minutes, that's where you yell, talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, and look, I went to see Pearl Jam a few weeks ago, and Eddie's known for making some dumb comments, and the audience told him how when I was there. They're like, "Just saying, dude," and he was self-aware of it too. He's like, "Yeah, I get that a lot." And then he got back to singing.
A little later in this interview, it's kind of funny because remember when I was saying the other day, guys, how when a guy gets old like this, they have 0 fucks to give. And then after a while, you've been asked the same fucking questions. And I said this to you, I think, Script 2 yesterday morning on the show, where you've been asked the same fucking questions 500 goddamn times, told the same fucking story 500 goddamn times. It's been caught on video 500 goddamn times.
Yeah.
So from here on out, you're just going to go out there and tell whatever the fuck story comes to your mind about it, whether it's true or not, because you're just going to have fun because you don't give a shit. And it kind of sounds like some of the night was that from what this guy said, because he said, I caught him in like 2 lies and nobody said nothing. Because he's like, he was talking about this and that with like Robert Shaw on the set. And we all know from various accounts, that's not how it worked or how it happened and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, he's an 80-year-old dude. You know what? My dad is old. Guess what he does? He makes up fucking stories all the time.
Or he's just entering dementia like a lot of 80s.
You want to know why? Because he's either bored or entering dementia, like Script just said. Yeah. But my dad's always done that shit. He's always fucked with people. And he'll sit there and like, especially the grandkids or the kids, like he'll make up like, oh yeah, you didn't see it? What? The Sasquatch? Where? Over there.
Oh yeah.
And he's convincing as fuck.
My grandmother loved messing with people as she got older because she was diagnosed with dementia. But she was way sharper than she let on, right? Like every time somebody treated her like she didn't know what was going on, she just played into it. And it was really fun to watch. Not that, I mean, look, it's sad when it happens, right? But then she'd turn around and she'd give me that wink, like, she was definitely overplaying it.
Yeah.
She won't get up, but she showed me around the retirement home. It's like, you don't want to be on that side of the door because once you go to that side of the door, they never let you out.
Oh,
so,
I know those places actually.
Wow. Well, this is an interesting story, and I'm not sure if it's over yet, but I just want to get the truth out there one way or the other, because I feel like this is a big deal.
Really, I haven't seen any new news about it on the trades for the last 2 days. Like it's kind of
really like yesterday and stuff. I saw some, and this is why I brought it up because originally, like I said, I was going to just kind of ignore it and let it be outside of my Twitter reposts of it. And then it became like 3 or 4 reposts. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Now you got Hollywood Reporter, all these other papers from other countries getting in on it and stuff. Like it's spreading. And the thing is, they're not spreading any actual real information. They're not even doing any footwork to try and actually talk to anybody who they can confirm was at the actual fucking show.
No.
Yeah, because the most recent article I can find is The Guardian from yesterday. Everything else is 2-3 days old. I think it's dying out already.
I hope so, because to me, the Bill Murray story died out fast, and that was fine and dandy with me because it was a bigger nothing burger than this. I'm just to the point where leave him alone. What the fuck did he do to you? Right? Like,
well,
yeah.
Oh, he bucked up. He doesn't go with the Orthodox. Yeah. Of course, they have to go after him. It's ridiculous.
Unfortunately.
And pathetic, of course. Yeah.
Unfortunately. So anybody else got anything to say on Richard? Because until we hear more on this story, that's the best I can do. Maybe you never know. I'm going to try and see if I can't get a hold of the man himself somehow, some way, and maybe talk to him about all this.
That'd be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
That would be a cool
I don't
midnight
think
Edge
this
After
story
Dark
hurts
with
him.
Richard.
And I would finally get to ask him the biggest question everybody's always been wondering all this time and getting the answer for.
If he needs a bigger boat.
No. What about Bob?
What about?
What about?
All right. With that, I think we're caught up. Was there any other story? Was there any video game stuff or anything I missed or anything important that I missed? Oh, there was a Tom Bombadil story. Do you guys want to react to that garbage real quick?
If it's in Rings of Power, I don't care.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, then I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom Bombadil is going to be in Rings of Power season 2. Surprise.
Season 2 or 3?
2, I think. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Oh, good. I mean, listen, Peter Jackson didn't do Tom Bombadil because it's so difficult to figure out that character. So you have the arrogance of the Rings of Power people saying, yeah, we can do it. It's like,
and I don't know. I got a Blaze Media one from.
You can do Galadriel properly. Now you think you can do Tom Bombadil? Justice, good luck with that, man.
I don't know. 6 says she found one from Blaze here 8 hours ago, and then one from MSN 7 hours ago on
Blaze
the
doesn't count.
Story. Blaze doesn't count, huh? Okay.
No.
Wow.
But anyway, like I said, it is spreading more farther than I wanted it to, or I thought it would, considering it sounded like a big bunch of horse shit to begin with. But yeah, so go check out Andre's new video if you haven't already. He breaks down his thoughts on the Peltz story and his and what he thinks happened there and everything, and what his plausible outcome will be in the future, if there will be any more future to this, as far as Peltz is concerned, and how Disney will probably turn out. So check that out. Other than that, let's see what you guys got going on. Price, what you got coming up tonight? Don't you have a
Quantum Leap? Yeah, there's
Quantum Leap stream. Yeah,
Quantum Leap stream at 10 p.m. and then at 11:45 p.m. there's the Night Owl with myself and Dread Roberts. All of that is happening on Price of Reason Live. I only say that because a lot of people are subscribed to my main channel, the Price of Reason one, but I feel like they don't actually go and subscribe to the live one, which is a different channel, and it's one for live streams. So if you ever get a chance, Price of Reason Live.
So check that out. And I know we got a few hundred people watching here right now. This is a separate channel from the main channel, in case you don't know that, in case you came here from X or somewhere else. So do make sure you are subscribed. And even if you are subscribed, take the time to unsubscribe, resubscribe, and hit the bell, because YouTube has been dumping a bunch of subs lately. So make sure you even still subscribed at this point. That would be excellent, and I'd appreciate it. And hit that like button if you guys haven't. I know I don't bug you guys to do that enough, and I probably should bug you more. But please do hit that like button. That does help us out here. Even if you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Any kind of engagement helps. So with that, then I think we're going to go on to Script Doctor. What do you got coming up? You're going to be on Quantum Leap, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be chatting Quantum Leap with Price later in about, an hour and a half-ish, something like that. Oh,
and here we got Sharky Pal. If I hadn't known you were in the chat, buddy, I would have actually tried to get a hold of you and sent you the link to come in and ask you some more questions. Maybe we'll have to do that in the next few days if this story continues to heat up at all. Try and get in touch with me somewhere outside of YouTube if you can. My email is listed on the YouTube channel in the About section. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. I'm sure one of the mods or 6 or somebody can share the link for me. That'd be great. But yeah, thank you, Sharky Pal, for the $1.99. We appreciate that. Again, that's the individual who shared his take on what he saw at the Jaws screening. So there you go. Oops, he messed up his first super chat. Well, go ahead and say what you wanted to say, Sharky Pal, and I'll definitely highlight it in the chat after Script is finished plugging his wares.
Oh, I'm done. You're good.
Oh, you're good? Okay. Nick! Punish us. What do you got coming up? I think Nick's stuff. Price. Tell us what Nick's got coming up. I think he's got something coming up tomorrow, like comic shop talk.
I'm
I'm
here.
going to be doing a comic shop, and we're going to be talking, and Klobby's going to be there. It'll gonna be huge.
Is it going to be
You guys
diabolical?
It's going to be diabolical and huge. We're going to
I
be
like
talking.
the diabolical. That was
I do
great
too.
with the diabolical.
When do you ever say diabolical? Not to
I've
be-
never heard him
now-
say it
now and
offhand, but
again.
Not to be
it does
critical.
sound like
I'm
something he
saying.
would say. Yeah, maybe you have. I don't know.
I have a few times, not often, but I have saying that. No,
Oh.
thank you, Price. I do appreciate that. Yeah. Tomorrow, Comic Shop Talk. It's the conclusion of our Spidey saga on the Lee Ramita Senior run. Toxic Tuesday, we'll be talking Punisher Warzone. That's going to be actually diabolical. And I've got a video I've got to record in a few minutes before TNT tonight. So keep your eyes and ears open for that.
All right.
If
And
you're a
just-
Conan fan, go watch my video posted last week because that did
Oh.
pretty damn well. I'm really happy that my Conan video did well. So it makes me happy. And yes,
Come
more
smile upon
Price
you if you
doing
watch
me.
Nick's video.
Yes, more
Watch it.
Price doing my voice for a plug. So thanks for being here, chat. And I'll see hopefully a lot of you in an hour or so. But if you're a
Nick, you have to
Clubhouse
start doing
guy-
my voice for my plugs. You should
Oh, dude,
switch.
I can't do. I'm going to need a lot of practice before I can even get your voice down a tenth of the way.
Hey, I don't know how well I do yours, but people there's a lot of goodwill, you know?
Yours is fun and funny, especially because you get the right words down. Me, I'm like, I'm more concerned about getting the pitch, the tonality of the Price of Reason, and I don't know if I have that in me because I have such a lower registered voice. I don't know if I have that.
Mine
no
is
one
pretty
can
low
go as
too.
low as Price.
So, anyways,
Mhm.
thanks for being here, chat. Remember, if you're a Clubhouse fan, stay in your lane at the Clubhouse, and for the rest of you, TNT.
It's dynamite. TNT to CEC. We got all kinds of letters in here.
Yeah.
Karaoke Friday night, right?
Tomorrow is the return of Friday night karaoke with Tom and hopefully Price if you can be there, and
I'll try,
and
yes.
Dragon, usual suspects. So we'll be singing songs and hanging out and having drinks, and it's a good time. So check us out there. And on Saturday, I'm hanging out with Script Doctor.
Yep.
We're discussing a script about a couple of codependent ladies. who,
And one of them has found the love of her life, and it's a guy. So
That
yeah,
doesn't
so
exist.
that's going to stress
That's not
that,
very
that
realistic.
best friendship. I think it's a story
Yeah, I'm
we
with
can all
Klobby
relate
on
to.
that one.
Yeah, I don't believe it. Do that for a
Don't
second.
believe it for a second. Nope.
Nope.
That would mean
Never
she just
happened to
needed some
anybody.
deep dicking. Klobby. Speaking
Yeah.
of deep dicking, I'm sure
I guess we
you
could
go
speak
rock
of that.
hard, right?
Well, good night, folks. I don't know what to say to that one. So,
Well, you're made of
Um,
rock, aren't you?
not on YouTube, anyway. Yeah, okay.
Is the thing
okay.
always hard?
No, there are times when he actually switches back to normal Ben Grimm, and then it just loses.
Well,
his-
no
I can't
wonder
believe
he's
it.
grim.
Right. I got nothing. Wow. I was
What do
totally
you got
off the-
coming up? Sorry about that. What you got coming up?
Shoot. Tonight in about a little over an hour. Number one, my wonderful Raquel joins me for my first officer and the great Mark D with the C for our clubhouse. We have a Blake 7 review tonight, episode review, and the Kolchak the Night Stalker review tonight. And tomorrow, my buddy J-Man's channel, we continue our ongoing mission of reviewing all of Jack Kirby's legendary run on the Fantastic Four comics, of course. It's a wonderful comic book run on that. Saturday night, Raquel will be be away, so I'm going to do a special edition of Saturday Night Star Trek where I rank every single episode of Star Trek the original series from worst to first, all 79 of them, and that's about it that's going on for right now. Thanks for having me, though.
Oh, of course, we're glad to have you here as always. And me, I don't know. Maybe I'll show up on TNT. We'll see. We'll see if they deserve me.
They don't. Spoiler
Not
alert.
really. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and thank you guys for being on the panel. Thank you to all the mods in the chat. We always appreciate the help that you provide us, and thank you, Six, for your extra help tonight, because I know you're not working. So there you go. And with that, let's get out of here. Bye. See you, Jay. It's time to go. Push a button.